everyone, and welcome to Sunday Politics live on Channels Television. We're reaching you live from Osun, the capital of Osun State, where we've been monitoring the Osun State governorship election. It's not completed just yet. What a day it has been in the history of the people of Osun State. The election day was fixed. The campaigns came. The primaries went also. And the election approaching, the people of Osun State came out to elect a new governor. INEC officials, journalists, everyone gathered, security operatives, observers, all in one room, keeping vigil to know who will become the new governor of Osun State. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, declared the Osun State governorship election inconclusive. The electoral body says the number of cancelled votes is higher than the margin between the two top candidates. People's Democratic Party candidate Ademola Adeleke led the race with 254,698 votes, 353 votes more than his closest rival, Boyega Oyetola of the All Progressives Congress. And this was the announcement by INEC earlier today. Well then, what does this law say about the issues of inconclusive election? What should the people of Osun State be expecting in the coming days? They just have a few days before the election is completed. Let's get a sense of all of this and break it all down for you. It's been a long day for the people of Osun State. They've anticipated, and there's a lot of anxiety in there. Joining me tonight to dissect these issues, we look at the analysis of the results and the figures from the election. Tonight, I'm being joined from our Abuja studio by a lawyer and a policy governance expert. Honorable West Idausa is also a former lawmaker. Thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight. And here with me in our makeshift studio here in Osogbo is the National Coordinator of Election Monitor, Mr. Abiodun Ajijola. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Let's break it down. What does this mean in terms of the figures that we have, the kind of turnout that we see? High or low turnout?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. You know, turnout is a relative figure. If you look at the turnout we had in this election, it's about 45.64%. That you would say is good, because in cases like Anambra, we had 22%, Edo 30-something%. But if you go back to 2014 in Osun, we had 53.3%. So it has dropped by about 7.66%. So that's actually a reduction in the voter turnout. But the voter turnout in terms of the real number has increased by 2.3%. So in 2014, we had 750,021 people that voted. But this year, we had 767,955. So that's an increase of about 17,934, which is 2.33%. So while we have an increase in the number in the real term, it's not an increase in the overall voter turnout, which means that proportionally, fewer people voted in this election than what we had in 2014.
It's also interesting that we had about 1.6 million people registered, and we had over 70% collection of permanent voter cards. Yes. But what is the reflection of the turnout? Because this is the highest that we recorded across the country. Osun State has the highest number of PVC collection. Does this really reflect, considering the people that registered newly and the number of PVCs collected?
Yeah, I think Osun has set a very good standard. Like I said, 2014, Osun also set the record for having, you know, in recent elections, the highest voter turnout of 53.3%. No state has crossed that in terms of governorship election till now. And once again, in the recent off-cycle elections we've had in the past few years, Osun has also come again to break the record by giving us, you know, 45.64, which is a bit more than what we had in other states. Now,
and in recent time, there hasn't been any state that has reached that mark.
No state, as I'm aware of, in terms of governorship election, that has had up above that. Now, when you look at that, and you also look at the PVC collection of about over 73%, I think it's actually something that we must commend the electorate in Osun State, because the figures show us that there is a general, they are eager, or they are quite committed in the electoral process. I was one that felt that, like you mentioned, we have over 1 million people, in fact, 1,682,495 registered voters as of now. And we have about over 1.2 million PVCs that have been collected. And I was one of the people that were, I was like thinking that how is Osun going to manage the voter turnout it had in 14, I mean. But, well, they've not gotten exactly that turnout, but they're still doing well. PVC collection is good. So I think Osun electorate should be commended. At least the citizens of Osun State have done well. And there is no state currently in governorship elections or cycle elections that gets to this level.
That means there's a level of political awareness in the people of Osun State. Yes. Let's look at the figures that some of these candidates got. We have the top 5 candidates for you, and this is the order in which they performed. From the PDP candidates, Senator Adeleke, to the APC candidate, where they had just a little above 300,000 votes in between them. Mr. Oyetola came second, with the SDP candidate, Senator Oyetola, coming third, and is a distant fourth in the terms of figure. The man that left the APC, Mr. Adeote, the former SSG, came fourth, and the fifth is the former PDP man, who was also a former governorship candidate of the Labour Party, who was the flag bearer of the ADP. So he came fifth. That's Alhaji Fatai Akinbade. That's the order in which they come. Give us a sense of what these figures mean and what they got in terms of the numbers.
Yeah, thank you very much. So the APC candidate got 254,345. PDP 254,698. So the difference was 353. And in a governorship election, I haven't seen any governorship election in recent times as close as this. Essentially, they scored the same thing in percentage terms. They scored the same thing. But when it comes to real figures, there was a difference of 353. But when you look at the total figures for let's say the 4 leading candidates, for example, that gives you about 686,834. Percentage-wise, that gives us 4.62% of the total votes cast for just 44 parties, right? Remember in Ekiti, we had 2 parties that scored 97%. Yeah. The remaining 33 scored 3%. Here, we have 4 parties scoring about 96%, or let's say 95.5%, and then the rest scoring just over 4.62%. So for me, that's once again still goes back to the issue of having so many candidates on the ballot, and at the same time, really not being able to pull their weight.
So the votes have been balkanized, and
being balkanized.
Everyone getting a share of it, no matter how small.
That's it. But one good thing I liked about the Osun election, or that I like about this election, is that it's not the 2-horse race. Because we have gotten to a point where everybody begins to feel that politics in Nigeria or elections is all about 2 leading parties. But Osun election has told us that it must not be so, because we had 4 parties that did quite well in this election, and one scored about 128,000 thereabouts, one about 49,000, and that's quite good, because I think it should encourage people to say that this idea of if you are not in the 2 leading parties, you can't win election is not true.
If you look at the voting pattern and look at some of these candidates and how they seem to have held down their strongholds. The predicted strongholds of these from Senator Yellow Mishore, out of the 4 local governments from his hometown, Ile-Ife, he got 3 out of it. And if you look at the ADC candidate, Adeoti, he held his own hometown down. If you look at the candidate of the APC, he also held sway where he comes from. And same thing with Senator Adeleke in Ede. He showed them that he's a son of the soil. So what does this pattern tell us? It's a pattern of we support our own, isn't it?
Yeah, you see, in politics, you must have a foundation or a base. And if you are not able to win at home, then the probability that you can win outside home is greatly reduced. We do have cases like in '99 where Obasanjo was able to win away from home and not much at home and still able to come out as president. But in most cases, if you lose your base, you cannot win an election. And that is very important for majority of people when you go into politics. So it's important, and I'm happy to see that they have achieved this. And looking at what you have said, and looking at the rerun on Thursday, you realize that the 4 local governments that are affected, 2 are in Osun Central, 2 are in Osun West, Osun East. None are in Osun West. Meanwhile, we have one of the candidates that came, between the first and second, being from a senatorial district, where none of the affected polling units are in his senatorial district. And when candidates perform very well in their senatorial district or in their home locations, that also gives you an idea of how to look at how things could, how things are.